Alright guys, so if you were out here with us last week, you know that this week we're going over trail cameras. We're going to go over the Bow Creek outdoor cameras that we have, which is the main majority of them. They're a few years old. Then we're going to go over the cell cams that we use, which are stealth cams, and a few other miscellaneous cameras that we have, like Moultrie, Primos, and I think that's really all we got. Moultrie, Primos, Bow Creek, and stealth cam. So what we're going to cover is finding a location to set your trail cameras up, how you want to set those cameras up in a tight grid, and then throughout the season spread those cameras out in the location that those deer are coming from. So as we walk up, we'll show you where we have our cameras set up in relation to where we're going to be sitting and why we have them set up in those locations. Alright, so we've moved this camera off. If you guys watched that clip from a little bit ago, when we first set up our cameras here about a month ago, we had everything kind of centralized to where we were putting the minerals down to get it, and the reason we did that was to get a good idea of which direction our deer were coming from. So we had 3 cameras set up on the food plot in a triangulated position to where we would catch them coming from this direction or coming from behind or in front of that feed pile, and we got a pretty good idea of the 3 main directions that our deer were coming from. So what we did was we took those 3 cameras and we've positioned them a little further out from where we originally had them set. So we've moved this one back on the road. It originally was sitting back here to the right in our, if you look here behind us, this is where we've been setting up our supplement. So we had deer moving from behind Dad there along this trail and moving straight down through here, so we set this camera up to see exactly which direction they're coming from. If they're coming off that trailhead, then next time what we're going to do is we're going to leave this camera here, but we're going to set another 2 cameras up behind it facing in different directions so we can figure out exactly what direction they're headed from above us there. If you follow me, I'll show you the trail that we're talking about. If you look right up through here, this was all a big logging operation at one point in time, so they've got trails cut all through here, and the deer utilize those trails the same way that we do. So we're fairly sure that they're pushing down out of this trail. That's why we've set that camera up there, to be able to see if this is exactly where they're coming from. And like I said, once we determine exactly which direction they're coming from, then we'll fan out and try to pinpoint a exact location that they're hanging out during the day. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, it's good to know where your deer are at certain times of the day. And for 2, if that deer isn't moving over here until, let's say, 6 p.m., which during hunting season that's a little too late, then maybe we can isolate an area up in that direction and set up our stand up there, or set up our saddle up that direction. And the same with those cameras down below as well. We're going to be doing the same exact thing. Got it? Alright. So this camera here is from Bow Creek Outdoors. This is their BC42. This is a 24 megapixel camera and one of their older models. I'm pretty sure this is the first camera that Bow Creek came out with, and for being the first in a line, it does pretty good. I'll post up some pictures here that you can see that it takes, and some videos. Waterproof design. There are a few faults with that. We had some water intrusion on a couple last year, but for the most part they stayed pretty good. Easy access with one single clamp. You have a view window here, your on off switch, and then all your buttons for settings. And then comes with a tree strap as always. Price point on this camera is about $150. You can get that directly through their website, which is linked down below in the description. Fairly decent camera for the price, and great company. So that's the majority of the cameras that we're using. We have 6 of those, and then we have one of his new cameras that we're using, which I'll show you here in a minute.
Yep.
Alright guys, so this is the Bow Creek BC36. This is a IR no-vis camera. This is one of their newer ones that they've just come out with. This video is actually sponsored by Matt in Bow Creek. He hooked us up with this camera at the outdoor show, so we're gonna do a review on it. We've had it out here for about a month now, and the pictures and videos from this camera are absolutely immaculate. I put them up in comparison with my stealth cam. Those things are crisp and clear, very detailed. The color is very oriented to exactly what the colorscape was here when the pictures were taken, and it performs very well for a smaller camera. A lot of times when you get smaller cameras, it's a little bit hard to tell because the megapixels aren't what they are in some of the larger bodied cameras, but this thing does great. Price point on this is about $136 on bowcreekoutdoors.com. I'm really happy with this camera, and I think I'll probably get some more. So with that being said, I'll post up some pictures and videos of what we've pulled off of it so far, and you guys can see for yourself the quality of them. So along with that camera that we had up on the road, this was one of the original cameras that we had set up directly on the feed pile. The photos that we showed you from this were taken from that position, and they were a little bit close, and we want to have one camera isolated to our supplements there, just so we can basically have this as a gathering point to see what time the deer are coming in here, especially since when it gets closer to the season, I'll be sitting in that tree right there behind me, that pine tree. So I want to know exactly what time my deer are coming in here, which deer are coming in, which direction they're coming from. So we moved the camera off of that tree and set it up right here facing that supplement pile behind Dad. So that's the point of that. And once we get a little bit closer to the season, I'll get my stealth cams, my cell cams set up, and one of them will stay here to always be looking at that pile, and that'll give me a good time frame of when I need to be in here, because if the deer aren't coming in here until 5 o'clock at night, I don't want to be sitting in that tree at 6 o'clock in the morning and waiting 11 hours. So it gives you a really good idea of when the deer are moving in to where you're sitting, and it's probably one of the most important trail cameras that you have in relation to how you're going to set up your sit through the season.
Why don't you want to sit in that tree for 11 hours?
Because it's a pain in the ass, literally. So, and you guys, if you guys hunt and you're avid hunters and you've sat in a tree stand for hours on end, you know as well as I do, you want to limit that as much as you possibly can, especially if you're not getting any traffic through here until the latter parts of the day. Or if you're getting them in right at sunrise, you want to know that so you can be in that stand at 3:30 in the morning and wait until that sun comes up. So
you're going to do that every day, or how you?
Yeah, as much as I can.
Huh?
As much as I can. And that's the good thing about having the cell cam out here, which was the next thing that I want to talk about. We don't have any set up right at this moment, but I'll show you guys some about the stealth cams here in a little bit once I get home. The good thing about having the cell cam is, if I have that thing set up here and I haven't had any deer in here in 3 or 4 days, there's no point in me even coming out here and sitting. So I want to have a habit of those deers, so that if they're coming in here every day at 5 o'clock and that cell cam's shooting me pictures to my cell phone, I want to know exactly what's going on, and I'm going to base my hunts off of that. If I don't have anything coming here, I've got 4 other properties to go hunt at. State game lands all over the place that I can hunt that I might have a higher probability of getting a deer at. Alright guys, so we're up here with the third camera that we had originally placed up there by the supplement pile. This is another one of the BC42s that we had covered up there. So the reason we chose here was we had deer moving from left to right of the main beam camera there, and this was the trail that they were headed down. So you see that hog trail there to the right of me. That's a pretty well-worn trail, and a lot of the bucks that we had moving up there to the supplement pile, this is the direction that they're coming from. So just a wild guess, by looking in the area, this seems to be the more worn path that they're taking. So we set this camera up here to capture anything that's going to move up through here. So like that camera up there on the road, if we have a lot of movement in here, what we're going to do is we're going to leave this camera here, but then we're going to place 2 more cameras down further if we can find a split off to get a absolute direction of which those deer are moving in. So when you're setting up your trail cameras in the early season, that's how you want to set them up. You want to set them close knit, kind of get a triangulated area. If you think of like a radar and how a radar would work, it starts in close and then expands out further, so you're getting an exact location. And that's the idea behind this. You want to start in a close proximity like we did at the beginning of the season, and then start branching off from there in different directions. And like I was saying earlier, that gives you an absolute location of where your deer are coming from, what time they're coming from. If they're not pushing here, where are they going to be pushing, you know? So that's how we're approaching it this year, and hopefully we get some good results from it. Last year we tried a grid pattern where, you know, we set up cameras, and if you were to look at a graph, you know, you got A, B, C, D, E, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's kind of how we tried to set it up last year. But the actions were so sporadic from the deer that it was hard to exactly pinpoint what was going on. So we're going to try this year and see if it works a little better for us. The reason the grid didn't work out for us last year was we are in a centralized property right now. So we have to drive through one property to get to where we're at, and then we're surrounded by other properties. And with us setting the cameras up the way that we had them set up last year, and the activity coming off of those other properties, we had guys setting up blinds directly on deer trail. So if you were looking at this deer trail right here, that blind was sitting in the middle of it. And then we have 15 stands on the property to the left of us down there. So in reality, what we're looking to do is figure out exactly what these deer are doing in the early season, get in here, get our deer, and get back out of here, because after that, once those guys start putting all that stuff up, we don't have any control over that. That is a non-controllable factor.
Right.
And that's hunting.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where you go or what you do, you're always going to have outlying factors that you cannot control. So that's the point of doing what we're doing now, is to figure out exactly where these deer are, so we can get in here and hunt them early season and then get out of here.
Yeah, it's not just the deer that you have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You got to know what's going on all around you,
Exactly.
because that'll all change everything. So
Yeah,
you know,
as soon as he put that blind in the middle of that deer trail,
boop, that changed. Everything
the deer
changed.
habits switched up, and that was our biggest issue last year, was dealing with other people's actions affecting the actions of our deer that we had here on this property.
Right.
So, and deer will travel up to a mile and sometimes further during the rut. So if they're pushing into that property and there's changes there that they haven't dealt with before, they might not come back to this property until after hunting season's over. For an animal that has such a small brain, they are highly intelligent when it comes to evading threats. And that was what we were dealing with last year. We dealt with this property down here having ATVs out during the hunting season and running at all times of the day. We had these guys up here putting their blinds and tree stands wherever they felt like. So,
And they can, because it's their property.
Exactly. This is public property. In a lot of areas, it's public property, and they can do whatever they want wherever they want to do it.
Private property.
Some of it is, yeah. I'm saying up here is public. So
Yes.
anybody can do whatever they want to do up here as long as they're within the guidelines of the law.
Right.
So it's basing your hunt off of everybody else's hunts that's around you. You know, if they want to put a tree stand up right next to my tree stand, they're more than free to do that up here on public land.
Well, this, where we're standing right now, is not public. This
Right,
is actually private.
But
That's
10
why
feet.
we can put a feed
10 feet that
source,
way
because exactly, because behind you
is
another
public land.
150 yards is public land, but those deer are you know, they're coming in off of public land to the private land, and our goal is to intercept them
Right.
somewhere along the lines, keeping in mind that you have to use the wind, and this is mountainous area, you know.
So you have to remember when you're setting everything up for the year, whether it's finding what tree you're going to put your tree stand in or where you're going to put your trail cameras at. If you have public property that you can put feed out, if that's legal in your state, you have to take all the factors into account: where those deer are at, where they're going to be coming from, what they're feeding on, what times of the day they're feeding on. You don't want to set up a tree stand somewhere where the deer are only coming at night.
Right. Waste
Because
of
you
time.
can't hunt deer at night. So it's there's a lot that goes into hunting, guys, and don't let it overwhelm you, because it is an awesome sport, and it can be easy to fall away from if you're new to it. But just stay determined and keep pushing.
Yep.
Get out here, and it takes hard work to get the final product at the end of the season. So keep boots on ground and keep pushing these woods.
Yep.
And you'll figure it out. It might take a couple years, but you'll get it figured out.
Yep.
So we really appreciate you guys coming and checking out the videos. I'm gonna head back home and get something to eat. I just moved into my new house, so I got a bunch to do there. Like I said, we appreciate it and are super grateful for everything you guys do for the channel. And just keep an eye open, guys. Hit that like and subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you can get all the updates on the channel and what's going on. Hit those links down in the description. Check out those awesome products from fnxfit.com, from Bow Creek Outdoors. Those guys make some awesome products, and you guys would be fools not to check them out if those are things you're into. So with that being said, we will catch you guys next week. Thanks for coming by.